If you want to know how to make $1 million real estate game plan, you have to know how to take any and all kind of assets that are out there, the 10 hidden assets, and how to rearrange them.
'Cause we're gonna be legends. What we're doing here ain't just scary. It's about to be legendary.
J.B. Shea, 1800s economist, said that growing wealth is just moving money from low yields to high yields. We're gonna do that actually right now. So it is freaking time to roll up the sleeves. For me, this is when it gets fun. See, this is when I put myself in someone's shoes and say, oh, if I woke up today with your finances and I didn't care about any of your beliefs, what would I do with your money to become a millionaire? And I have to say it that way because, by the way, do people have strong feelings about their beliefs about assets? For example, if someone were to take equity out of a home to put it in real estate, what can that create for some people? Dude, you're dealing with like a married couple, and the woman, she's gonna be like, you wanna touch my house? You wanna take some of that equity? You wanna put that into real estate? And I swear you are messing with mother bear and mother hen right there. So that's a sacred cow. Everyone has ideas. By the way, if someone is an end of the world prepper, how do they feel about their gold and silver? Sacred cow, you can't touch it. If you're dealing with someone who's been a high-powered like CEO in that space, how do they feel about their stock brokerage account? Crazy strongly. So by the way, I do game plans as if I don't really give a rip about your belief system. I'm agnostic. I'm just literally saying with everything I know, what would I do if I were you? So you need to understand when you're building these game plans that it's a touchy subject for people because they have strong feelings about money. And most people are financially jacked up. They've got weird ideas in their head about wealthy people, rich people, those who have money versus don't, that it takes money to make money. They've worked hard to accumulate what they have. It's not enough, but most people are so deeply engrossed into a scarcity mindset that on the one hand, this is terrifying. But on the other hand, it's also what? It's exciting. Why? Because they've never seen it. Someone's about to step in their shoes and say, I'm going to show you some things to give you some options. So when I do a game plan, I always tell people, it's like, listen, I'm going to put myself in your shoes. I'm going to tell you what I would do financially if I were you. You're not me. I'm not you. I don't know what's best for you, but I know how to make money. And I'll show you how I would do it with your assets. And so I create a little bit of space for permission. And to do that, we have to understand the 10 hidden assets. This, Derek, is like game on 100% where you and Denise and the rest of the team like jump in. Hidden asset number one. You guys have the manual. What is it? Okay, 401k. I'm going to give you everything you need to know about this little bastard. 401ks, good or bad? I hate them. And now, by the way, there's two kinds of 401ks. Bad and really bad. Bad and really bad. You have what's called a current 401k, and then you also have a rollover 401k. Rollover is from where? It's from past employment. Current means that's their current job. So by the way, I'm an engineer and I was working for 10 years and I put $80,000 in my 401k and then I switched to a different engineering company. And I rolled it over into the new 401k and then kept adding to it. Now my 401k has $160,000 in it. But how much of it is rollover? 80,000, and that means that how much is new? 80. So they've got 80 current, 80 rollover. They have 160 total. Here's the good news and the bad news of a 401k. If they wanted to touch their 401k and access it, they're going to have to pay a penalty. I call it a cost of business, or it was the cost of being uneducated, or it was the cost of the choice that you made. That 10% penalty you cannot avoid. I'll show you one way that you can avoid it, but it's not dreamy. If you wanted to avoid the penalty, by the way, well, first of all, if you pay the penalty, then you have to pay what? Then you have to pay taxes. And for most people, you know, depending on how much you're pulling out, there could be another 10 to 25% that you're going to pay in taxes. So most people are going to flush 20 to 35% of that money right down the drain for accessing it. Now, for that reason alone, people are like, I can't do that. That's not a viable option. Pause. Can you do anything to avoid this tax? You're going to pay it sooner or later. You can't avoid it. So don't think that way. That's broken thinking. The penalty. Can you do anything to avoid it? Guys, not really. So guess what? It's called a cost of business. So you just suck it and eat it. And then you go out and actually invest in real estate. Problem. The 80,000 rollover, you can touch. Once they've left one job, whatever they have built 401k, they can access. The current stuff, there is a very small likelihood of being able to access it. They could call their HR director and say, can we do an in-service distribution? Which is the formal way of saying, can I have my current 401k money? 10% of the time they'll say yes. 90% of the time they'll say without hardship, the answer is no. Okay? So with 401ks, the bad news is that some of it can't be touched. If there's some of it rollover, I immediately look at that and what do I see at this? I see houses. This I say, want to change jobs? Then you can free up the other 80,000, right? Guys, we don't want anyone to ever financially be hurt. Every home makes them better off because they get cash flow tax benefits from where they're at. There is an option called a self-directed IRA, a self-directed 401k. This is where you say, I'm going to avoid the penalty, I'm going to avoid the tax, and I'm going to put it in a self-directed account. And pretty much, for the most part, all you can do with this is buy real estate cash. If you buy real estate cash, what happens to your ROI? Plummets. So does this defeat the purpose? Yes. So none of my partners self-direct their 401ks currently. None of them. There can be some rare exceptions that I will tell you about. But outside of that, they're going to pay their taxes, they're going to pay their penalties, and now that they can access part of their 401k, or when they quit or leave or move on jobs, then they can access the rest of it. So that's really important. I'm going to give you guys 4 scenarios. We're going to actually play along a little bit, and I'm actually going to role play you with different assets so that our fulfillment team can actually know how to build these different game plans. Okay, tell me about IRAs. How are these different? Is that the second one? Okay, hidden asset number 2, an IRA. How does an IRA work? First of all, there's a couple different kinds, right? There's Roth IRAs. There you've paid your taxes up front, and then when you pull it out, you might have to pay a 10% penalty, but you don't have to pay taxes. Most people put it into a tax-deferred IRA, like a SEP IRA, and you're going to same thing. You're going to have to ultimately, you're factoring in your penalty, which is how much? And your taxes. You may not have taxes if it is a Roth. But other than that, when I look at an IRA, what do I see? I see houses, okay? So my rollover is the only part of my 401k I can touch. I can touch every part of an IRA. And do you know how much I will hesitate before pulling it out, paying the taxes and penalties put in real estate? I will freak out once I know I have one, and I will be thrilled the moment it is liquidated because I don't believe in that vehicle path. By the way, you can throw that one in with mutual funds. Did you know that less than 5% of all mutual funds will even make money with inflation? Guys, joke, our economy is being run by financial idiots that control our money. There's only one person that is actually approved to be a financial planner in your life. And do you know who that is? That's you. That's what we're teaching people how to do. We educate them and we let them make choices. But we're giving them choices that have a shot of getting them where they can go versus making choices that have a guarantee of never getting there. So IRAs are just like rollover 401ks. Taxes and penalties, and then it's real estate. Hidden asset number 3. All right. Let's define home equity for a moment. What do we mean by home equity? It's the difference between the value and the owe. So if I have a house, and let's just say for a moment that that house is valued at $300,000, and let's say I owe $150,000 on it, then what is my equity? The equity is the difference between what I owe and the value. In this case, it's going to be how much? 300 minus 150, $150,000. Home equity is going to be different on an investment property as a primary residence. Let's talk about primary residence. In most economies, banks will allow you to access, Marianne's right, 90% of the equity. Some banks might be more conservative and be 80, but usually it's up to 80% on an investment, sometimes 70. You can go up to 90% off on the home that you live in. So by the way, if you take a look at this, what's 90% of the value of 300,000? It's 270. Simple way to do that math in my head all day long is I just say, what's 10% of that? 30 grand. 30 grand from 300 is 270. So I say, if I owe 150 and the bank might allow me to access up to 270, how much usable equity do I have? $120,000. By the way, when I see this $120,000, what do I see? I see houses, I see 2, 3, 4 homes. But by the way, this money is different. When I pull this out, this is free money, free capital. This capital has a cost depending on how you access it. There are 2 ways to get home equity. One is with a HELOC, which stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. By the way, if you guys are engaged in watching this, I'm literally giving you every detail on the science of how I build $1 million game plan even if you don't have home equity, learn this right now because the neighbor next to you does, a parent does, other people do. So a home equity line of credit, how much does it cost to set one of those up generally? It's free. Most community credit unions, I'll go to 2 different credit unions and I'll say, what can you do for me? And they have an internal way of simply doing either a drive-by or looking up things online. They'll tell you what they think the value of your house is. They'll tell you how much they'll give you. Within 2 weeks, you can have a home equity line of credit usually. So a home equity line is like a revolving credit card. I have $120,000 on my home credit card. If I don't use it, my payment is what? If I use it, my interest is what? Most of these range between 3 and 7%. Is this expensive money or cheap money? Okay, I want to teach you a word. It's called arbitrage. Here's what arbitrage means. My investment is producing a 25% ROI. Of the 25%, my cash on cash is 7%. I can borrow my money, in this case, let's call it, at 5%. How many of you would trade 5 for 25? Yes, but you need to look at the cash on cash number because you need to say, wait, if I borrow at 5, will I have a payment to make? Will you have a payment to make? Yes. And you have to look at how much of your investment is going to give you a cash flow to counter that. If you're pulling in 7 and you're borrowing at 5 on just these 2 numbers, are we still positive? Yes. That's called a positive arbitrage by 2%. That means after my return pays off what I borrowed, there's 2% left over. Is this a big number or a small number? Small. No, and depending on the performance of the property, this could go up a little or this could go down a little bit. Does that make sense? This is a break-even arbitrage. If I did it, I would be doing it for what overall ROI? This one. This is a long-term play. This is not a cash flow play. If I free up my 401k or my IRA, do I have payments on that money? No, just my tax and penalties, and then my money's free. So the cash flow I get doesn't have an obligation. Home equity has an obligation, true? If it's a HELOC. The other way is to do what's called a cash out refi. A cash out refinance is basically restructuring your loan, and the bank will say, oh, your mortgage was $150,000. Now we're going to make your new mortgage $270,000. Did my payment go up? Your payment went up, but by the way, a lot of times people are on these stupid 15 years and other kind of loans, or they can get low rates, so they can sometimes take money out and actually lower payment. In this situation, your payment's going to go up because you're taking out $120,000, but now you have your $120,000 out and available. HELOC, you're only charged on what you use. When you pull it out this way, you're charged on everything, whether you use it or not. Does this make sense? Which one's better? The answer is it depends. Here's what it depends on. Okay, so if this is variable, then you might be thinking, hey, this percentage can go up and down. If I do a cash out, I might be able to lock it into a lower permanent rate. So one of the things that I do with people is I'll say, start with a HELOC, buy your houses, and then you can restructure it into a refinance after you buy your houses and lock in a low interest rate. Does it make sense? Does everyone understand what I just said here? Okay, so by the way, home equity. When I see home equity, this is a sacred cow for people. They're saying, you want to touch my equity? And sometimes they're terrified. The only reason why they're terrified is because they're locked in an accumulation mindset that says what? I need to get my house paid off. When is the right time to pay off a house? Let's just say you win the lottery. This is your house. Right now, your house, you owe $150,000. It's valued at $300,000. And you just won $150,000. If you're worried about debt, then you're going to take that $150,000 cash and do what? Pay off your house. Did your residual income increase? Did your investments increase? Did your tax advantages increase? Did you make your life better? No. So I would call that premature. Let's say that I win $1 million and $150,000. And with the $1 million, I'm able to create investments that produce a residual income that replaces my job. And then I have $150,000 left over. Could I then pay off my house? I do it after I've established my what? So most people, guys, the last thing that they're ever going to do is pay off their house. The last thing. Unfortunately, most people make it the what? The first. And what they do is they tie up their money. And that means it can't be invested. And the biggest thing that they lose is time. This is how people screw themselves over every day long because they're afraid of their liability. They're afraid of their debt.
So one of the ways I've looked at it is the ROI of paying off debt is equal to the interest you're no longer paying. What's the interest on your house? Primary residence, usually somewhere around 4, 5, or 6%. When you are ready to have your money earn 4, 5, or 6%, as opposed to the 25% we just talked about, that's when you pay off the house.
So when you can afford to earn low ROIs like Kris just said, 5%, pay that house off. Super smart, great way of looking at it. So by the way, the math that we're doing right now is an economics principle called opportunity cost. Now, some people are watching this video, by the way, and they're like, Kris, I don't even know why you're freaking posting this online. It's like pew, pew, going right over my head. Everything you need to know about making millions of dollars is in this conversation. So by the way, if you don't understand something, you should raise your hand and you ask. If you don't understand any part of this conversation, you get a mentor, a coach, or somebody and you say, teach me, I need to be an expert on this few set of tools.
Kris, do you have coaches that can talk to you that would go over this?
You're funny, Carson. Do you have Yes, anyone can click a link on any video I ever have and talk to my expert team and actually get a custom game plan. You're funny, dude. So by the way, what we're performing here is called opportunity cost. It's what? And it's just, this is earning me 5%. These homes could earn me 25. What's the difference between 5 and 25? There's a 20% difference. That's a 20% positive arbitrage. Arbitrage is a really important word. It's the difference between what am I making versus what I could be. Opportunity cost, what's the next best investment I'm missing out on based on my choice? Now, I need to bring this up because someone ultimately is going to say, but Kris, high ROI equals risk, right? How many of you hear this? Dude, this is scary stuff. What is scarier? Contributing every day to a financial game plan you guarantee by math will never work. Guaranteed failure is what most people are facing. Is there risk in what we're doing? Could you go a month or 2 or 3 without a tenant? Could a tenant beat up the house and create an expense you weren't planning on? Are we prepared for it? Yes, we are prepared for it. But when you're brand new, there's this fear of all of the unknowns. What you should be terrified of is if you're following society's game plan, because it's guaranteed to fail over and over and over again.
So Kris, we've talked about primary residences. What about if we have an investment property as a hidden asset?
All right, let's do that one. 1, 2, 3, here's number 4. If you have an investment property, will banks do home equity lines on investment properties? Generally speaking, no, with rare exception. So the only way to get money out of an investment property is to do one of 2 things. Cash out, refinance, or sell it. And by the way, I believe that all real estate at some point needs to be sold. At some point, all real estate needs to be sold. When I was in Israel, I had a chance to observe the Dead Sea and the River Jordan. Along the River Jordan, everything next to it was lush. You walk out a mile and everything is dead again. So in that part of the world, water equals life. Dead Sea, nothing can live in it. Everything is dead. Most people have an investment strategy that is like the Dead Sea. Nothing is turning. They're not earning multiple ROIs on their money, and there's stagnation. 5% with Kris's 3% inflation takes 40 years to double your money. I would call that a Dead Sea strategy where you are dead. Living waters, we need our money to flow. So let's say that I had an investment property that was valued at 300 and I owed 150. And most investment properties, if you look at the bell curve on profits, it looks like this. You're going to reap your biggest profits in the beginning and then you'll get diminished returns with time. So on average, I hold on to my homes how long? 5 to 7 years. Why? Because I'm trying to get the juicy stuff and I don't want the drags. I want the good stuff and then I'm going to switch it. So I look at this property and I'm like, the bank will not allow me to go up to 90%. The bank will allow me to go up to 80 or 70%, Jaden. So let's just say it was 70%. Every one of you needs to know how to do this. Just take $300,000 and multiply it by 0.7. And that will tell you what 70% of that value is. 70% of 300,000 is how much? 210. Is 210. So if I go to a bank, I can likely pull out the difference between what I owe and 210, which is how much? $60,000 of usable equity. $150,000 is my actual equity, like Marianne said. $60,000 is my usable equity. Or what's my other choice? Sell it. And if I sell it, by the way, you have some selling costs. You got 6% selling costs. It's an investment. You might have to renovate it. You know, let's just say that you end up netting $270 as what your real sales price is that you get to keep. Take home $270 out of $150 is how much? $120,000. I can refinance, keep the investment, and get $60,000 And I would do that if it was a good investment that could still make sense after the refinance, or I liquidate it and get 120 grand. By the way, which one of these will get me more real estate? The 120 liquidation. But the real question is, I make my decision based on 3 letters, which is what? ROI. Which means not the location is so nice. We just did this remodel. That's where people, it's which one will make me the most money? Guys, it's arbitraging. It's like if I hold on to this investment and after pulling out 60 grand, let's say my ROI is 14%. By pulling out this money and selling it, I can average 25%. Which number is bigger, 14 or 25? 25. So if this were the actuality, what would I do? I would sell it. If after pulling out 60 grand, for whatever reason, my ROI was 25%, then what might I do? Keep it. Less work, less movement, less expenses, less fees. Refinance it and put in more money. Does this make sense? The highest level of positive arbitrage with the highest level of relative safety is how we build a game plan. All right, so that's investment property. Make sense? Okay, what's number 5? Land. How do I feel about land? Guys, is land real estate? That is real estate that I hate. Why?
Because nobody lives there.
It doesn't make me anything. It's not productive. I mean, maybe I lease it for the land for cows or grazing goats or I don't know, but like right now, land is usually the worst real estate investment, period. There's usually sentimental or emotional reasons associated with this, or time frame on when you bought something during a dip. But usually, whatever the value of the land is, if I have 2 parcels of land and they're each worth $50,000, what do I see? Houses. By the way, do I like houses more than land? Yes. Everyone understands why. Hidden asset number 6. What do we got?
Stock market.
All right. How do I feel about the stock market? It's adorable. I actually don't mind the stock market as a way of diversification after I have a real plan making me real money with real ROIs. But the stock market, the S&P and 500 we talked about is just shy of 10%. And 9%, what's 72 divided by 9? For all of my mathematicians out there, I'm doing my rule of 72. It's 8. So it means that I can double my money every what? I can double my money every 8 years. Is that better than 40? Is it better than 15? Is it as good as real estate? It's a great diversification, but it is a backup to a real full plan. A real plan means that in the time that I want to retire, I can make enough money. By the way, what is enough money?
Enough to produce the residual income to live off of.
Enough to produce the residual income to live off of. If you're not sure what that number is, it's probably your current lifestyle for starters. So by the way, if I make $60,000 a year, then I need to have $60,000 a year coming in residually, and then at least my job income is replaced if it came to that. Does it make sense? So in the stock market, if this 9% gets in the way of this number as soon as I want to get there, then what am I going to do with my stocks? I see stocks and I see what? I see houses. Right? What I love about the stock market, do I have to pay penalties? Do I have to pay taxes? It's free money. There could be some scenarios where there's some taxes or maybe on some capital gains. But outside of that, guys, this money is, let's trade this. Let's trade. By the way, who likes less for more? We're trading less money for more money. It's like I put $1 in, I get $2 out. If you guys could max out that ATM at 10 grand a month and put 10 grand in and get 20 grand back, who would do it? This is what real estate becomes. All right, asset number 7. Annuity. This is something I hate with a passion that runs so deep, it's next to 401ks. It's its ugly redheaded stepsister or brother. Here's what I hate about annuities. A financial planner convinced someone to take inheritance, 401k IRA, and put it into a vehicle to produce a certain amount of money. And then they lock it in and say, if you touch it, we're going to give you this penalty thing. If it's pre-tax, there could be tax implications. But here's what I hate about annuity. Every single time in my entire life, I did a game plan for someone that had one of these. The residual income was like, this would make sense. Kris, when?
When you're ready to have 4%.
When 4% produces enough residual income, and for almost like 99% of us, that will never happen. And the people I've seen have this, they need to be earning 20, 30% on their money, and they've made decisions to lock it at 4% because a silver tongue financial planner makes money managing your money, convinced them that this was a good idea. Number 8. What's number 8? Moving on. Okay, precious metals. My precious. Precious metals. Precious metals are precious to who? By the way, gold and silver. Gold and silver, who keeps gold and silver? Generally. It's people that are preparing for really bad economic times, as if everything will go back to a gold standard again. There's nothing wrong with having gold and silver. There's nothing wrong with having it as a hedge. It's certainly a great diversification tool. But if you're putting your money here when you don't have a realistic plan to replace your income with double-digit ROIs, then I look at this and I say it's foolish. So do what you need to appease your prepperness or your end of the worldness or those other pieces, or sometimes there's religious reasons. Honor that, right? But it needs to be in balance. And so at the end of the day, do precious metals pay you money? By the way, do precious metals pay you money? No. Does a stock market pay you money? No, it doesn't. It does not pay you a dividend. Does the land? By the way, most annuities don't actually pay the dividend. It gets rolled in. Even more disgusting. Land, does land pay you? Yes or no? Investment property, yes. We finally are doing something where I put money out and money comes back. We could talk about these other ones. Home doesn't pay us, IRA doesn't pay us, 401. Most of us are trained to be sheeple instead of people. I put my money with people that make money controlling me and I get nothing. Great deal. All right. So precious metals. When I see precious metals, I definitely see what? I see houses. Number 9, what do we got?
Cash value life insurance.
Okay, cash value life insurance. Okay, by the way, I am sharing with you the 10 hidden assets. And by the way, all of my partners are going to say these videos. So if you're wondering why we're recording this training with our team, it's for you. It's because I want you to know why we do and say the things that we do and say so that you can arrive at your own balance of what feels right for you, and we're going to honor your balance. Cash value life insurance is not the same as term insurance. Term insurance is, in the next 20 years, if I were to die, I pay this small amount out every month, and then my surviving legacy gets this pile of cash. Cash value life insurance is different. I put my money in for my term, and then I put more money in because I'm going to earn a dividend on my cash value life insurance. I love, by the way, cash value life insurance, personally. I'm always starting new policies. When I'm consistently saving money on a monthly basis, this is my number one favorite place to stockpile money. I just started another policy. I'm getting ready to do another one. And every month, I'm just putting money into these. Now, the reason why I do is because I put the money in, and then I'm pulling it out to put it into what? I put it into more houses, more projects, more investments. So this is a pass-through entity. And just going to do a little plug here. You guys all know that we're partnered up with Epic Wealth, and Epic Wealth provides insurance to people all over the world. And so if you've seen Rob Gill or others speak on our stage about Epic Wealth, it's what we're encouraging people to do is that when you finally aggregate your money that you want to put into real estate, or if you're a great saver because you're PYFing, pay yourself first, then you're passing that money through a life insurance policy, and it's giving you benefits. Benefit number 1 is what? Aside from death, what are the living benefits of cash value life insurance? You're going to get a guaranteed dividend. That dividend is usually 4 or 5%. A bank is typically paying you what percent? Point something, whatever. Guys, whatever the number is, if it comes after a decimal, it doesn't matter. But this, by the way, if you could be earning 4, 5, or 6% on your money while it's just sitting somewhere, like a sleep at night account or whatever, how many of you think that makes sense? Yeah, that's when I don't mind my 4 and 5% stuff. Are you kidding me? Some of these insurance companies are banks. They've been around longer than most banks, hundreds of years, many of them. And so I get a dividend. What else do I get? I get the dividend grows tax-free. What's another benefit? It is a little bit more challenging to touch. It's less liquid, so it's great for moving big chunks of money in and out. Another big benefit to me is that I can borrow it basically for free. I can leverage it and still get the benefit of whatever's in it. I'm telling you right now, you can have $1 sitting here and in real estate and actually earn money in both. That's pretty brilliant. Another reason I love cash value life insurance is that currently to date, this has been unlitigatable. Someone has beef with you, there's a lawsuit, there's a something. Historically, no one has ever been able to take money out of someone's life insurance policy to pay money owed. So there's a safety there. So anyway, bottom line is there's a lot of reasons why I love this. If you meet someone that has cash value life insurance, I only put money in it for one reason. To what? pull it back out and use it. So if someone has a cash value life insurance policy, you always need to ask. Some people are confused and they don't know how the difference is between that and term. They're like, oh great, well tell me about your policy. Yeah, it's like a $750,000 policy. Does that mean they have $750,000? No, it means that if someone dies, there's going to be a payout of $750,000. There's no money to get out of term. You have to ask if it's whole life or universal life and it has cash value. And you ask, how much is the cash value? Oh, I don't really know. Well, how much are you paying a month? Well, I probably pay $700 a month. Guys, they're not paying more than $50 or $80 a month max on the term component. So how long have you been doing that? Oh, for like 10 years. So my math is saying, what's 600 times 10 years? 600 a month. So 600 times a whole year. What's 600 times 12? 7,200. Times it by 10, 72,000. There might be $72,000. In other words, how many houses? I see that life insurance policy and I see 2 houses. And by the way, I can borrow that money at what price? Usually a negative 1% arbitrage point. You do not have to pay the 1%. It just gets taken off of the value. So your value goes down by like pennies. So you don't have to pay. It's very cool. Okay, anyway, cash value life insurance. Does everyone understand this one? When we work with our partners and we're creating game plans, what we're doing is we're combing through all of the different assets and we're asking what makes sense. And in a moment, we're going to ask that question. What's asset number 10? It's OPM, family, friends, others. Friends, we will always build more wealth with other people than we can ever build on our own. How many of you get that? The biggest thing that you have that no one else has is you know about me. And when other people find out and they look at the track record, they say, I want to invest in that. So you guys know how our Maverick program works, right? I mean, just really quick, we'll talk about it more later, but if people become a partner by way of recommendation of someone else, that person gets actually included in the ownership of the property. It's a very, very cool thing. So when you want to go faster, OPM. There's one last asset that is not a hidden asset that we haven't talked about. It's the only unhidden asset. Do you guys know what that is?
Money in the bank.
It's money in the bank. It's cash. This is when you ask people, hey, do you want to invest in real estate? Oh, I can't. I want to, but I can't. And they're only thinking of one thing. They're thinking of their bank account. We are not trained to have money in our bank account. We're trained to put our money in all of these places where we have little to no control. The purpose of a game plan is to evaluate the hidden assets and say, how do we restructure this to actually do real estate? That's where we're headed next in the training. We have all sorts of type of people from all over the world that are contacting us. Some of us are citizens of the United States, some are not. Some have usable credit, some don't. Their money's sitting in all sorts of different places, and at the end of the day, they're saying, what's my game plan? What could I do? What should I do? What I'm going to do next is I'm going to share with you the most common scenarios that I see, and we're going to actually do a little bit of role playing, and I'm going to actually show you how we use this information to actually build a custom $1 million game plan. Check it out.